Welcome
Where did
back, everyone.
welcome? Thank you, folks, for joining again. Where did I lose people? Clemens, where'd you lose me?
You were just saying it was just 3 weeks ago that we launched Obre, and I had to check, and while it feels like 3 weeks, it's been only 2 weeks,
Oh my gosh.
and it's been crazy progress happening since. But yeah, you were saying that that was a big ignition, I think, for us.
Yeah, completely. I think I said BioXP launched 3 weeks ago. Didn't BioXP launched a few days before Aubrey, right?
Yeah, definitely 3 weeks ago, and then the yapping points, the first batch of yapping points, just came before we launched Obre, just a couple of days.
Okay, amazing. So let's dive in there. I think the first batch, the first distribution of BioXP went out. I want to say August 21st, and so that was, I think, for probably um, a couple weeks of yapping, or about a week. So people got to feel what it was like to get XP for yapping. And just a reminder to folks new to the community, you can get BioXP, which qualifies you for Ignition sales. You can get it through, I guess, say positive sum actions in the ecosystem. So that includes staking staking bio ecosystem tokens like BioDAO tokens or BioAgent tokens, and then also yapping, spreading the word on social, getting good engagement, high quality posts. And so the first rewards went out August 21st. And since then, we have not had distributions going live. Everything's being tracked. Our algorithms looking at all this. So all those yaps you guys are pushing out, the amazing stuff each day. We're keeping track of it. But the only XP that's being distributed so far on the front end after the 21st is for staking and bio asset staking. So Clemens, catch us up. Where are we on Yapping XP? What's been getting worked on? What are some interesting things that we've seen in the algorithm? Some stuff we've been working through, and what do we have to look forward to in the future with Yapping XP?
Of course, Nate. Happy to do that. So first of all, thanks to the community for the patience. I know we've been saying that we will be dropping the yapping points for a while, and once we do it, we want to do it right. So that's why we've taken a little bit more time to refine these systems and make sure that we feel confident it incentivizes the right actions. And so we're working hard to get it shipped this week, and we're confident we'll be getting there. I think we're on the last percentages to get them out. And I want to share a little bit of the learnings that we had when we looked at the yappings. And of course, X and the yapping system is one of the key factors in our ecosystem to support, because at the end it creates attention, it creates or it spreads the word. It helps us reach a wider audience within the different communities in Web3, but also especially in the scientific community. And that's what we're most interested in, right? We want to show researchers there is a different way of doing research. There's a different way to acquire funds for your research, and take users, patients, enthusiasts on a journey with you to actually learn more about the field that you're working on. And so for us, it's really the yapping and the X system there is really to help amplify the great stuff that can be done in the sciences, and therefore the great progress that can be pushed. And so we don't take it lightly that these systems are basically an incentive structure, and all of how we're thinking about is an incentive design. And when we look at the yappings that we see, we can kind of cut it into two larger camps, but think of it as a spectrum. Of course, these two camps sit along a wide spectrum of I would always say, like, quantity versus quality. You can think of actually it at four quadrants. There's people who are yapping a lot with extremely high quality, and are thinking very deeply about what we're doing, sharing their own opinions about it, doing analysis, maybe going even on chain, uncovering data that has not been seen before, and sharing this to the community, and therefore having a healthy creating a healthy space for everybody to communicate. And on the other hand, you of course in such an ecosystem, and X wants to have all these voices as well on it. You also have bots, you also have spammers that are trying to basically use these mechanics to earn as much points with as little as needed input and creativity. And for us, it's a really hard task to actually find the fine line between this. Of course, if, for example, someone is doing 500 to 1,000 responses to tweets from Bio and from other accounts, it's very likely that these are either botted or low quality, because it is really hard to create 1,000 novel responses for an individual. And if they're one-liners, you can guarantee that this is actually not adding value to the conversation, but actually rather creating noise. And so, as much as it's an incentive system, it also needs to be a disincentive system. So, meaning it needs to disincentivize certain contributions as much. And so, what we're working on right now is actually creating an algorithm which basically allows like high quality, high engagement tweets to earn a certain chunk of XP. But then if there's just pure quantity, pure farming, basically after the first couple, like in a time frame, depending on the time frame, let's just take an example, like 7 days, for example, if there's more than 20, 30 tweets or replies in accumulation, after that, the drop off for every additional one, if there's not a significant spike in quality or engagement, will just basically just be noise, and therefore marginally no return. And so that we need to cut. We need to decide here, okay, like if somebody in a 7 day window did 500 to 1,000 tweets, um, like we can throw all of these against our AI overlords by just throwing it against the ChatGPT endpoint and get a response. Yeah, most of those are looking all the same. Most of those are basically just one-liners, and they're not adding to the conversation. And so we need to basically discount them very strongly. And that's what our goal here really is, to make sure that a healthy space of conversation around scientific endeavor is incentivized, and a behavior that purely is there out for farming points is disincentivized. And we know we're not going to make everyone happy with this. It's really hard to design incentive system and to design incentive system that works well. And actually, at the core of it, it will lead to some people, unfortunately, maybe feeling like their strategy didn't work, even though they thought maybe about a good farming strategy. But we need to take into account that we are trying to create a healthy ecosystem and a healthy community and a healthy discourse around scientific inquiries. All right, this was a lot of information, but maybe zooming out, very high level, two points to take away. Ingenuity, quality, scientific discourse is what we want to foster, what we want to support, and what BioXP will be heavily focusing on in the future, and also will now with the first drop of BioXP. Pure quantity, pure farming behavior will not be receiving much BioXP, and in the future, if any, BioXP.
Awesome. And so, how will distributions work going forward?
Yeah, so we're there's those are details that we're still hashing out, because we are currently looking through the data and seeing how long usually it takes to have tweets mature. At the end, a tweet, like my initial estimation last week was that probably it needs around 3 days for any tweet to mature. We've now looked at the data; it might actually take that a little bit longer. So a tweets based on the length of maturity until a tweet, we think like on average, let's say has received its, let's say, 90 to 95% of its engagement and viewership. Once we are in that percentile, that's where we're going to make the cutoff. And then basically the delay from a tweet until somebody gets their points in the future will be this maturity gap, right? Now looking at that data, will probably be between 3 to days. We still need to finalize this, but we'll communicate very openly and clearly about this maturity gap so people can expect, okay, for example, I tweeted, let's say, 5 days ago, and we said the maturity gap is 5 days. Okay, this is now how long I need to wait for the BioXP for that to show up.
Yeah, I mean, I think that feedback loop is so important, right? To get that dopamine hit, uh, in your app when you open it and see your yapping points tick up or your XP tick up because of work you did, in the past few days on social. I think is so important, and I'm excited that there's not going to be these kind of long waiting periods going forward. It's going to be, as you said, probably about 3 to 7 days
Yeah.
after your post.
And again, thanks everyone in the community for your patience, for waiting for, I know now, I think it was 2 weeks now, for the new drop off of yapping points. We're really trying our best to get it out soon. And we appreciate all the hard work that is being put in there.
Cool. And just to most people on this call probably know this, but for any of the newcomers who don't, why is BioXP important? Well, there's ignition sales in on the Bio Launchpad. The first ignition sale was the first bio agent, Aubrey, which started at a 269,000 FDV that was available only to people who participate in the ignition sale, and you use your BioXP and also bio on getting these allocations. And now in the market, I think we're seeing Aubrey at around 40 million FTV. So this is like 150x. So I think we've been saying that the first experiment worked. Now we want to scale this, and BioXP is the key in there. And I think a lot of maybe observers from the outside are like, Twitter points this, all feels so sort of degen. But like, I think if we zoom out, it was Chris Dixon who said, the next big thing always starts looking like a toy. So I think that's really the same case with BioXP. Like we're gonna really see this blend into contributing to scientific communities. Scientists are constantly talking about, I want to build community around this incredible science, but I just can't get attention. I want direct access to consumers for my new scientific product, and I can't build that. And I think this loyalty and engagement layer is just like going to be so powerful in the DeSci ecosystem and in the bio ecosystem. So I'm like incredibly thrilled that it's gone so viral to begin with, and that I think that's just going to pick up as the mechanics get worked out. I saw Akash and had his hand up briefly. I don't know if you still want to chime in there.
I was just fist bumping about the Chris
Oh,
Dixon idea.
very cool.
And
Go ahead.
maybe just to take a look here into the future, and this is not something that we'll be rolling out in the next week or so, but I just want to give a little bit of a look where we want to take this. I already highlighted scientific discourse and progress is something that's very dear to our hearts. And so, for example, engagement with our scientific agents, Albright being the first one, but also the future ones that might be coming up, or support of specific research projects, or the work in certain DAOs, all these things that we find extremely valuable. Anybody who is helping progress a research project with quality input, with creating, for example, a plan of like how to validate endpoints of a certain experiment, we think that is a quality that we're going to push towards in the future, and we have plans to bring BioXP into these directions, into these contributions as well.
Awesome. All right. So Alpha Drop, some news. You're going to be getting Yapping XP coming very soon. Start stacking XP because the next sale, the next ignition sale, is expected next week. So you'll be able to use your Bio XP and your bio in that sale. It's going to be on base. We'll be sharing more details soon about what specifically is launching. But again, the first Aubrey sale was an amazing success. We know everyone's been super patient with getting the next sales going. We want to start this flywheel as quickly as possible. We just want to make sure that we're launching quality stuff. All the piping and architecture is working properly, but the next sale will be and is expected next week. So get psyched about that. Awesome. All right, let's move on. We wanted to give a quick dive into something in the ecosystem. Some of you have been with us for a while, are familiar with Molecule, and have been following Bio and BioDAOs. Might be familiar with. Most of you may not be familiar with it, but that's something called IP tokens, intellectual property tokens. What are they? So I would love to maybe just lean on Clemens and loop you in here too to kind of just talk about, let's say, sort of the history, the short history so far of IP tokens. The way I like to describe them is they sort of embody, let's say, atomic units of science in the ecosystem. So whether that's a specific biological mechanism or a therapeutic method or a specific compound or treatment, we have these agents that are generating all these hypotheses and ideas, and they spit out what could effectively be IP tokens. And same with BioDAOs. BioDAOs are sort of built around therapeutic areas or research fields, and once they settle on a sort of discovery, they can sort of tokenize that into a specific token that actually starts to look a lot like an RWA or real world asset called an IP token. So I want to just kind of shift things to Clemens a bit. Maybe you can kind of give us a brief history, your sort of LI5 on what IP tokens are, and also how they'll be supported in the Bio Launchpad.
100% happy to give a quick overview. So let's start actually with the problem, right? Anybody who is contributing to a certain project would love to co-own a share of that project when they're spending time, energy, or resources on it. And that is the same thing when you collaborate maybe in an early project like a company, but it's the same thing if you're actually contributing to a research project. So let's say you and a couple of your scientific research colleagues, you are thinking about, for example, starting a certain research project around longevity of mice, and you have this like idea of how to extend it. You're thinking about this molecule and then about a certain way of testing it, and you have all these people now coming in to contribute to this, right? So the question is like, how do you make sure that everybody who is contributing to it can basically share in the governance of what is coming out of this, and then basically kind of own a piece of this research project. And this is what IP NFTs and then later IPTs were created to be. They were created for people to actually create a representation of a research project, of an approach to solving a certain, for example, a therapeutic problem, like a certain condition, finding a therapeutic approach to solving a certain condition, and for people to actually together invest in that approach and then share in the progress that is made in there. Now, the IPT is a very basically wide object. It can be behind it can be data storage that is just storing a lot of the data that is coming out of a research project. It can also store legal agreements behind it that, for example, represent the ownership of IP that came out of the research project. As well as a whole bunch of other information and metadata. And so a big shout out there to the team of Molecule. I see a couple of them also here in the Twitter space. Actually, they're building with Molecule and Molecule Labs basically an infrastructure that ties data rooms to these research projects, to these IP NFTs and then IPTs. You can think of IPTs or almost like fractionalization of an IP NFT. If an IP NFT would represent an individual research project, an IPT could be represented as a fractionalization of that, or as yeah, basically parts of the whole. And so Molecule helps us with their infrastructure to create these data rooms where people can collaborate on it, researchers can come together and basically foster this research project and actually bring it forward, hopefully to a place where some novel IP is originating out of it, which can then be used to, for example, create a product and solve a condition, or even maybe alleviate certain symptoms that come with a certain condition. So this is the overall idea behind the IPT and how it relates to actual fundamental research. Now, the question is, how does it now relate to agents or to DAOs, right? Who have been with us for a while know that there's already a couple of these great DAOs that are doing amazing research in their different therapeutic area that might be from longevity to women's health, women's reproductive health, to cryogenic research, to hair loss research. So a lot of very exciting fields, and so they all fund different research projects, and they often then own the research that is coming out of that in certain forms. And some of them decide to tokenize this research into then, as you said it, an atomic unit of research, which is basically then the IPT. And similarly, like DAOs, we want to make these agents like Obrai and others basically engines that spin out new hypotheses, form new approaches to solving a certain condition, and then basically create a tokenization of that to raise the funds, and with that to foster a research angle to solving a certain condition and creating a new therapeutic approach to it. And so you can think of basically the agents almost like a machine that is yeah, accelerating our research endeavors by creating a lot of these IPTs and creating basically funding infrastructure and testing infrastructure for us to foster these approaches, and for everybody who is interested then in supporting these approaches to actually support them, chime in, work on them, or supply them with capital if they want. All right. Again, a lot of information. Nate, do you have any follow up on that?
Yeah, no, great job. And then just one thing to add is that, I mean, and maybe you can explain this better, Clemens, that, IP tokens will also have ignition sales on the Bio Launchpad. So, and they will,
Exactly.
so yeah, just go ahead. Like those will look effectively like, the Abre ignition sale, but they'll be for, again, that specific atomic unit of science, that specific piece of IP that's generated from the agent. Is that right?
Exactly. So you will see on the launchpad basically three kinds of sales. We've halted for now any new DAO sales. You saw the first agent sale with Obrai, and now in the future we'll be having these IPT sales, which are basically these sales for tokens for tokenized research projects and the approach. And so the ignition cell that you will see on the launchpad will look very, very similar. The tokenomics might be a little bit different. The information being shared around these assets is a little bit different, because an agent, for example, lives by its usership, so by people contributing to it, where an IP asset, for example, it's extremely important for people to see also what is the approach, what is the research that is being conducted here, and do they think that is actually valuable in its right and makes sense to invest into. So yeah, completely right that ignition sales for IPTs that, for example, our agents like Obrai is creating will be available on the launchpad, but also IPTs that existing DAOs are actually launching. So some of the ones that have launched with us over the last 2 years, like Vida DAO, Cerebrum DAO, they already have amazing research projects that they have been supporting already for a while in the mapping out of what needs to be done to, like, yeah, again, further their therapeutic and scientific endeavors. And with that, basically allow others now to contribute funds and also resources to it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. IP tokens have been around for a couple of years now. And if you go to Bio's app, go to the markets page, you can filter to see all the IP tokens that are live in the ecosystem now, from Vita RNA to from VitaDAO, or Claw from Cerebrum DAO. And so you can see all the metrics around their market cap. And these are freely traded now on DEXs. You can buy them directly through the Bio app too. What's new now is that they're being, originated by bio agents, which is important because when they ultimately go on the market or launch through an ignition sale, the bio agent will have a percentage of the IP tokens so that the value from the IP tokens can get passed back to the agent community that originated this piece of research. And that's not just like the value from the percentage of the IP token, but that's also the data that comes out of the IP token or the research project that's fed back into the bio agent. So that's new that that these IP tokens are now coming from bio agents and not just bio DAOs. And it's also new that they're being launched directly on bio through an ignition sale that is accessible just to bio holders and bio XP holders. In case this wasn't complicated enough, let's confuse people even more here and mention that there is an intermediary step between, let's say, a bioagent creating a hypothesis and something becoming sort of a freely traded IP token. And that's something called an IP NFT. So maybe for that, we can just sort of, Akash, if I can just call on you now too, there is this sort of intermediary phase where, from, let's say, even from X or from the from the Aubrey terminal, IP NFTs will soon be able to get minted to sort of create this proof of invention, this sort of, on-chain wrapper of all the sort of legal data type plumbing that goes into biotech IP. And maybe you can just walk us through how this integration is working its way into bioagents to sort of make it as seamless as possible for something to go from, let's say, an idea or an hypothesis, or maybe even just a social conversation on Twitter, all the way into actually a tradable on-chain piece of IP.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to walk through the life cycle there. So I think everybody who's on this space is probably following Aubrey, the agent, on Twitter. And you might have noticed on your feed that the agent is sometimes generating these hypotheses based off of user interactions. And there's a link in there, molecule proof of invention, and it lists base scan link. This is a time-stamped hashing of the content of the conversation that went into the agent's thought process before it came up with a scientific hypothesis. Now, not everything becomes a scientific hypothesis because obviously sometimes people are just chatting with the agents about whatever. I myself was asking Aubrey a question about, I think, Zone 2 training a couple weeks ago. But basically, like, this interaction on Twitter is meant to model like the start of a scientific research proposal. So you start off at the raw POI stage, like the initial timestamping. So one can make a claim that this idea originated from here through some maturation process, whether it's manual or automated. You refine a hypothesis to become a research proposal. So we posted a couple weeks ago a few examples of this on Research Hub, where initial hypotheses that came directly from Twitter interactions were refined and then put onto Research Hub. But basically, this life cycle of going from POI to IPNFT to eventual IPT is very similar to like starting off with the idea and eventually going into something that is an on-chain asset where a global community can participate in an ignition sale and participate in the translation of that R&D. I think this is really exciting because to me, what this becomes, we talk a lot about bioagents as these on chain perpetual scientific machines. But in many ways, they're also like living beings and or ecosystems in and of themselves because they are bearing fruit to future research proposals and scientific hypotheses, which can get translated over time. So, yeah, I think this is just a very exciting, very exciting space and very exciting arena that we're in right now because you can imagine um, from a single bioagent or from bioagents interacting with each other, just a whole like wealth of different scientific research proposals which can get funding through the IPT creation process. I'm happy to dive into more aspects of that. Or um, Nate, do you have any questions around that flow?
I want to tap you just for sort of a development update on bioagents in general. Nothing to add specifically about that flow. Clemens, anything on your end?
I just want to congratulate Akash for all the work the AI team has been doing there, from the being able to from Twitter create proof of inventions that can then actually be the starting point for for new novel approaches to research. I think that kind of puts the research process right out in the open and like makes it very communal, which I'm super excited about. So yeah, nothing to add here.
Yeah, I'll just add one small thing. Like we are in the field of DeSci, decentralized science, and even just by participating on Twitter with Aubrey or any other bioagents, you become part of a decentralized laboratory. Like, uh, I mean, I recognize that I might be like at the risk of overhyping. I mean, I think this is really what decentralized science is. Anybody, even if you're not a token holder, like you do participate in the collective growth of knowledge, and this is something that I think is a unique virtue of the DeSci ecosystem compared to anything in Web 2, compared to traditional academia. I mean, I think it's just really exciting. You can go from like vibe, there's vibe coding, there's also vibe sciencing in many ways, and um, because everything is open and decentralized, anybody can build on top of your vibe science, very similar to open source software. You can take a popular code repository, fork it, spin it up, uh, add your own flavor to it. Very similar game that we're playing here.
And also just to plug on the sort of vibe science side, I think Akash and then some longevity researchers from VitaDAO tomorrow are hopping on a stream. We're going to announce this actually after this spaces with Aubrey de Grey himself tomorrow, where there'll be a live demo of the Aubrey chat terminal. And, we'll see basically this kind of hypothesis generation and design, these sort of agent to lab workflows in real time happening, and also that the IP NFT minting directly, hopefully from the chat terminals tomorrow. So tune into that. We'll share the times after this. Another quick plug on this is we announced earlier today a hypothesis challenge. So effectively, what this is anyone can tag Aubrey, their Twitter handle, sort of create and refine hypotheses with the agent on X, and then submit it in the form of a research proposal. And Aubrey de Grey himself will be selecting a couple of the top hypotheses that can then qualify for up to 100K in funding. That funding will be generated via an IP token sale on Bio. So tying that all together. So also as a part of that hypothesis challenge, there's a referral fee or a bounty, 20K bio tokens. If you have any friends who are, let's say, medical researchers, students studying, or just citizen scientists who have longevity hypotheses, can form that into a research proposal, and their research proposal is selected. You get a bounty or referral fee of 20K bio. So check out the hypothesis challenge. We posted it earlier today. If you have any questions, hit us up in DMs and we'll respond. And then I just want to take a quick second. Akash, I know you guys have been super heads down on just the generalized development of bioagents. This is not just Aubrey you're building on, but something that can be applied to anyone who wants to spin up a new bioagent and create a real framework here. So I just want to take a second, Akash, if you can just let us know on the dev side what you guys have been working on just in the past week on the bioagent side.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to, Nate. So, um, we've worked with VitaDAO. We should definitely be bringing up, I think, VitaDAO in these spaces as well. They've been instrumental, the real catalysts behind making Aubrey a reality. So, infinite thanks and gratitude to them. Anybody who's not familiar, please follow VitaDAO. OGs within the DeSci space. But we've built Aubrey as the first and arguably flagship bioagent within the ecosystem. Actually, funny enough, very similar to VitaDAO's role as like the first BioDAO within the DeSci ecosystem. We've built Aubrey to be a world class, legitimate longevity scientific researcher. So not just something that's like play thing. I mean, I guess going back to the Chris Dixon idea, starting off, everything serious starts off looking like a toy. We've built it very seriously to push the boundaries of aging research and longevity science, given it the background of LEV Foundation's research, SENS framework, obviously with the goal of RMR2 funding, study funding, which we'll get into a little bit more tomorrow when we hear from LEV. But we also view the development of Aubrey as many lessons that we can take and apply to the bioagents framework as a whole. For anybody that's on GitHub, would definitely recommend you follow. Please star the GitHub repo. It's github.com/bio-xyz/bioagents. And a lot of the changes that we've been focusing on with Aubrey will effectively translate into future bioagent launches. And I can go into a bit of detail on what we've been working on concretely here. So the overwhelming reception of Aubrey on Twitter has been like 99% positive. I think people are really enjoying interacting with the agents, doing some hypotheses back and forth, getting to learn some different elements of longevity research. But we've had a couple of issues around hallucinations that I would like to address. Um, so primarily these hallucinations seem to be coming from the scientific papers that are being cited. So if you look at a couple of some of the problematic tweets right now, Aubrey will make a claim that is actually a very like legitimate and very scientifically sound claim. So there's no like logical issues there. But when you go into the papers cited, we have noticed that the agent is hallucinating. Oh, I found this information, and this paper is backing up the claim. So there have been a couple of hallucination issues that we have noticed, and we've been doing some deep dives into the internal reasoning, orchestration of the agent. We have different knowledge pillars like open scholar model, internal knowledge, knowledge graph. Um, and we're working on actively reducing these hallucination rates. We've pushed a few recent changes, so um, the reduction in hallucinations, at least unofficially right now, based off of internal testing, seems to be about a 3x reduction, which is quite a significant amount, I would say, of hallucinations. Um, but we need to keep going. You know, when it comes to making scientific claims, they need to be rooted in some like element of like reference work. You need data to come up with a hypothesis. So I kind of envision this as a continuous effort that we will keep striving for and keep pushing towards. But I'm really proud of the AI team for the work that's gone on here, and we will definitely be publishing results. The goal is to publish something in on bioRxiv where we openly uh, show our benchmarks, show the results, show the agent's results using a variety of different popular LLM models. So you can see the difference in performance of Aubrey and other bio agents, and also make it like verifiable. All of these results, all of these claims that I'm making sound amazing in theory, but that requires you to just like trust me, bro. Um, this needs to be verifiable in order for people to have the confidence that these agents will actually be able to move the needle and push the boundaries of science. So, definitely committing to that openly and publicly. We will be publishing this work. Just please give us some time as we are ironing out the kinks of evals and benchmarks. But that is definitely coming. And lastly, um, in addition to hallucination reductions, we have been refining the actual generation process of these hypotheses. Currently, the hypotheses tend to seem um, a little bit biased towards the knowledge graph aspect of the agent. So the agent really wants to take elements of the knowledge graph and base its hypothesis heavily on the knowledge graph. Um, but this is actually not what our intention was with Aubrey. We want these hypotheses to be generated in almost a multimodal way. So, taking the knowledge graph, taking Open Scholar, taking web search, um, you can't really get a well rounded and well formed hypothesis unless you're looking at it from multiple perspectives. I mean, this is the same way humans and scientists work. You can't be one dimensional when coming up with a hypothesis. You have to be multidimensional. So we're betting that the quality of the hypotheses that the AI generates after being prompted from a user will improve from this, and the process of kind of getting there is requiring us to refactor elements of the internal agent logic. You will most likely be able to see that on the bioagents repo once we've pushed this out onto Aubrey. We tend to develop Aubrey first, and then when it's ready, push it out to the bioagents repo. But yeah, make sure you make sure anybody who's listening stars the GitHub repo for bioagents. I think we have a little bit of an internal goal on AI team to get that to at least 1,000 stars. So would definitely appreciate the love there. But yeah, really exciting work. Not just benefiting the existing bioagent Aubrey, but will be benefiting all bioagents moving forward. This is one of the benefits of having an opinionated stance on the framework that we provide. Of course, we don't want to limit the agents that can launch on the launchpad. This should be event progressively decentralized and permissionless over time. But we do obviously have our opinions of like what makes a strong bioagent, and we want to make sure that everyone can enjoy the fruits of that labor. Sorry for the rant, Nate. I just get really excited and passionate about this stuff.
No, that was awesome. And actually, if you could hone in on just maybe that last point you made, and Clemens, I know you're doing some work on this as well, and this is somewhat future gazing, but the huge power of the system and the sort of open source permissionless nature of DeSci is that these agents at some point will be able to actually talk to one another. We've already seen in crypto agent to agent communication in its sort of earliest phases. Agents paying each other with their wallets. I wonder if either of you guys could talk to some of the potential there and even some of the early demand we're seeing in the biotech community about the power of bioagents being able to talk to each other.
Yeah, I'll maybe kick things off from the science side, and then Clemens, you can maybe dive into the more protocol side of things here. Um, let's just imagine that everybody on this Twitter space is at a conference. We're all at a scientific conference. We're here to present our research and also network and like meet new people. A lot of the most interesting uh, parts of a conference don't actually happen in the conference sessions themselves, but they happen in like the spontaneous kinetic energy of improvisational conversation, sometimes over a beer. Um, I think when we consider the bioagents themselves on an agent to agent level, we are building them in a way, and we're encouraging others to build them in a way where they do have this like domain of expertise. So, for example, Aubrey agent is obviously very like longevity research focused with a particular expertise in the SENS framework as per Aubrey de Grey himself. Um, but like most of the really interesting advances in science seem to come from the intersection of different fields. For example, optogenetics, a relatively new field within like the I mean, maybe not so new anymore, but optogenetics comes from the intersection of physics and biology. You see this just in countless areas. And so you can imagine if you are able to combine the intelligences of uh, agents with different domains of expertise and have them communicate and collaborate to each other, potentially even learn from each other, you you potentially have like a really um, interesting path towards discovering true novelty in science that you might not get from like a um, more one dimensional, quote unquote, one dimensional focus of a single domain of expertise. Um, Clemens, I know that the protocol team has been thinking a lot about this from like on-chain capabilities. There's a couple of other projects that we've um, drawn inspiration from. Would you mind speaking to how we can enable this like on-chain multiplayer uh, element?
So 100%. So I think in general, it's not only in the Web3 space, but also in the Web2 space. We see a lot of people think about agent marketplaces and basically creating a new virtual space where agents can collaborate with each other. And at the end, while I think a lot of it is also fueled by this kind of specialization need now that a lot of these general intelligence models, like if you think about OpenAI, their core model and so on, they're very good at certain like generalized tasks, but they quickly break down on very specific tasks, and so there very quickly arise the need for specialization. The specialization can be done by giving it an environment, the general model, where it gets very specialized knowledge with, for example, a knowledge graph. It can get very specialized function capabilities, like for example a wallet or maybe access to a simulation environment to simulate certain processes, and soon you basically create a system which is represented as an agent, because at the core there sits this model that now has access to these capabilities and this data storage. And so this is how the specialization happened. And soon everybody realized, okay, now that I'm actually specializing this model, I want to give or the specific AI, I want to give access to that to as many people as possible, but also to as many systems as possible, so that anybody can now prompt this specialized AI. And I'm here specifically speaking not just about people, because at the end, similar like any tech infrastructure might have a user front end, but then also an API where a machine can actually hook into and then interact with it and, for example, pull data. The same thing here applies to these agents. It could interact with other agents to return certain outputs. It can also interact with other agents to, for example, interact in a conversation, similar like a human-to-human interaction would be playing out. And so it became pretty clear that these agents from a single player, okay, one AI dominates everything, becomes a multiplayer, many AIs specialized will interact with each other, um, game will be forming and will be playing out. And of course, there's still the AGI community that thinks there's going to be the one model to rule them all. Let's see if that actually plays over the next 5, 10, 20 years. But like, if that does not happen, just like and we believe probably not. If it does not happen, then the specialization of agents that are based on improving base models will be something extremely important to achieve. And so in this case, like an agent marketplace, now coming back up the stake, an agent marketplace where different specialized agents interact with each other will become extremely important. And it's not just us saying this, because we see AWS, we see Google actually leaning into the idea of agent marketplaces. The cool thing with us is that we can build it on the 21st century of payment rails. We don't need to link ourselves into the Visa or Swift payment rails to have these agents pay each other, but we can use computer native payment infrastructure, and that is crypto infrastructure. And so we've seen the first like great approaches to this. Big shout out here to I would say pioneers in space, such as like Virtuals with their ACP. We take a close look at everything they're doing. We're very inspired by them, and so big shout out to them. But we think also for an agent protocol that is focusing on scientific inquiry and also user data in the future, so patients maybe in trusted execution environments sharing their data to certain given access to certain agents, there will be different needs for these infrastructures. And so this is where we are thinking that a agent-to-agent commerce layer, and therefore also an agent-to-patient or multi-agent to patient commerce layer, will become extremely important. Yeah, a lot of a lot of context here, but bottom line is agent-to-agent commerce, something that we are excited about, and we're going to look deeply into as soon as more bio agents are rolling out.
Okay, we are coming up at the hour, so I want to briefly summarize the call for folks who are just tuning in and need a TLDR, and then close things. BioXP, Yapping XP from all the way back from August 21st is expected to drop this week. The algorithm is getting automated in the future, such that distributions are expected to happen every 3 to 7 days. And everything is getting tweaked to really reward high quality scientific discourse. The next ignition sale is expected next week. So we will do that distribution, of course, before the next sale. So you'll be able to use your BioXP on the next sale. The next ignition sale will follow a similar structure as Abre. IP tokens will also be supported in the Bio Launchpad. They'll get bootstrapped via ignition sales. IP tokens are generated or can be generated from bioagents, but also from BioDAOs or on their own. Aubrey de Grey will be vibe sciencing on a stream tomorrow, and we might even see some of the hypotheses that are generated get developed into IP tokens that can be launched on the Launchpad. BioAgent development is rapidly progressing with Akash and the AI team working on hallucinations, benchmarking, knowledge graph fine tuning, and also we have a live hypothesis challenge for folks who tag Aubrey, submit research proposals for longevity. Those can get funding for up to 100K. And if you refer a scientist, a friend, medical student, anyone in your life, you can tag them on Twitter and they note you in the research proposal, you get a 20K bio token bounty. All right, mouthful. Thank you guys so much for joining. Really appreciate everyone's attendance. If you have additional questions, and I know I saw some hands up, and I'm sorry we didn't have time to answer those here. Hop into our DMs. We're very responsive. Hop into our Telegram, Discord, and we will see you guys in our channels. And thanks again for joining. Excited for the days and weeks ahead. Take care. Thanks, Clemens and Akash, too. Appreciate it, guys.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you so much, Nate. And thanks,
Enjoy
Akash.
those.
Talk soon.
Bye-bye.